Hi, everyone. Welcome to this Instagram Live. I'm Ed Park, and I'm the founder of Neuro Reserve. And today we're going to be speaking with Jessie Hillock. She's a certified dementia family coach, and we'll be speaking with her for about, I'd say, 30 minutes or so. The topic we're going to cover is how to spot abnormal versus normal aging in your loved ones, especially during the holidays, which are right here upon us. We met Jessie last year. Actually, wrote an article with her on this topic. It was very well received, so what we wanted to do this year is follow up on it with an Instagram Live. So I'm going to be looking for Jessie to request to join this Instagram Live, and then we can get started on it. But she helps a lot of families out with navigating between diagnosis and how to handle it at the family and home levels. So let's see here. So I will. And hopefully it works. And I'll also wave to her. Hey.
Hello.
Hello.
How
Hi,
are
Jessie.
you?
Yeah, I'm
Hello.
doing good. How are you doing?
Good. I'm great.
Nice, nice. It looks like it's nice, bright. It's a nice, bright day out there in Indiana, right?
Yes, beautiful weather. I'm sure the cold is just around the corner. So,
Okay. Well, we'll let you get out there and enjoy it for the rest of the day after we have this talk here.
yeah.
I was just introducing you um, as a certified family dementia coach, and we can we'll get into all that and what you do through your practice, which is called the memory compass.
hmm
I think you've worked in many different contexts, right? Whether or not it be in the home or skilled nursing facilities or nursing homes, memory care, long-term care. So,
Yes.
you work with families in a lot of different contexts, and it's
hmm
great to have you here
Thank you.
to talk about this topic with us. So the reminder of the topic for everybody is it's how to spot abnormal versus normal cognitive aging in your loved ones during the holidays. And there's two big reasons for this. One is that November is actually National Family Caregivers Month. So it's a
Right.
month where yeah, recognize and honor people who are caregivers. And on top of that, it is the beginning of the holidays. So everybody's about to get together again. so
Yeah.
so it's just a really a good time to see our family and others that we love and get a feel for how things are going with them, encourage them to live healthier lives, and so forth. So without further ado, I'd like to just dive into it here. I'm just going to ask you a lot of questions.
Okay. All right. I'm ready. I'm
so
prepared.
so but I guess the first thing is you know at kind of like a definitional level, I guess.
hmm
um, what is normal cognitive aging versus
Yeah.
abnormal, and then of course examples are probably what people would love to hear
Right.
about, because then they can get an idea of how to spot that in their loved ones. So
Right, absolutely. So, I feel that we have so much misconception around what's considered normal aging and what's not normal aging. I hear from families all the time that will say, oh, well, we just thought that the things they were demonstrating were normal for quite a few years before it turned into something a lot more advanced. Can you hear me okay?
oh
Or is
yeah,
it? Okay, perfect.
I got you.
Okay, perfect. So, normal aging is as we age, things kind of slow down a little bit. So we have slower processing speed, a little bit slower thinking speed, but we're still thinking fine, we're still processing fine. It's just a little bit slower. Normal aging is also, not being able to, let's say, remember the name of, let's say, a colleague that you worked with many years ago. You
Mhm.
recognize their face, but oh my gosh, what is their name? But then later on, you're able to retrieve what their name is. Or normal aging is also like you misplace your keys or your cell phone or other items in the house, or one of those things where you walk up to the top of the stairs, you're on a mission to find something. wait, what was I looking for again? Like that can all
Oh,
be, I do that,
okay.
right? Like, yeah, like that can be normal aging. We're able to
So,
retrace our steps. So that's considered normal.
yeah.
Um, but what's not normal, if you want me to go, do you want to go ahead and go into more of an
Sure.
MCI? Yeah. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. So what's not normal is forgetting the names of, let's say, grandchildren. Like, even if you have grandchildren that you don't see very often or live far away, you still should be able to remember what their names are. Um, you know, a mild cognitive impairment,
Mm-hmm.
um, that's more advanced. But if we just stick to mild cognitive impairment is when things are affecting your ability to utilize your executive function skills. So your problem solving, your organizing, planning for something like, okay, planning for the holidays. If you're planning for all of your family to come into town and you're trying to plan like the recipes and where everybody's going to sleep and how everything's going to go, having some overwhelm with the planning where maybe years ago you were able to do that just fine, but now all of a sudden it's like it just seems very overwhelming. That's more of a mild cognitive impairment characteristics. Mild cognitive impairment, though, still we might need to put some supports in place to help us with things like managing our day to day. Like we might start having more difficulty with managing a calendar or managing our finances, those more higher complex problem solving things. But we're
Mm-hmm.
still able to do them with having some supports in place. We're still able to problem solve through those things. When it's not normal aging and it's more advanced, is when that starts to affect our daily living and having supports um, are not enough. It's like we need more. It's affecting things like our day-to-day function, our ADLs, like bathing, dressing, eating, ambulating. That's when it goes into, okay, this isn't normal aging. This isn't mild cognitive impairment. This is something a lot more further progressed than just that. Um,
Mm-hmm.
Normal aging as well, as you can, maybe others around you aren't noticing those changes that I mentioned before, but when it gets to mild cognitive impairment, you yourself are noticing them and others around you start noticing them as well. And then when it gets to a more full-blown advanced something else is going on, everybody's noticing that something's going on. It's not as subtle. It's pretty like there's something really going on here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with my dad, he had Lewy body dementia, and when he first started showing signs, well, first of all, he started out with Parkinson's disease, but
Yeah.
and back then we didn't know. First of all, we didn't even think about having any family dementia coaching or anything like that. So I think we
Mm-hmm.
quite a bit, but we didn't. We kind of stumbled through it, and I remember when he first started showing some cognitive impairment, and he would trail off as far as his conversations with me, and then he wouldn't be able to actually. It's almost like he wasn't paying attention. His
Right.
attention would trail off, right?
Yeah.
And I used to take huge offense to that. I didn't even know
Right.
what I didn't think it was cognitive impairment. I thought it was him just being selfish. Actually, it's really strange, right? And I just, oh, why is he in this mood? And then it would frustrate me. And
Right.
these things are really sneaky,
Mm-hmm.
how they come up.
Right. The things I hear along those lines from my
Mhm.
clients is, especially with Lewy body dementia, it will be, I'm noticing that my loved one's becoming more withdrawn, and I'm
Mhm.
thinking that they're depressed. So in some of the families that I've worked with, they don't even have the Parkinson's diagnosis yet, or the Lewy body dementia diagnosis yet. They receive it in time, but what I'm hearing from them, oftentimes the first thing the doctor goes to is they're depressed. But I've had so
Yep.
many clients say, but I'm not depressed. I just feel that I'm not, I just don't have as much like motivation. And I feel like I need to isolate. Like I feel like I'm fatigued a little bit more. It's just very interesting. And another, you know, thing along those lines is that frontotemporal dementia as well.
Okay.
So
I,
yes,
I think that's
that's
associated with bigger kind of behavioral personality changes,
yes,
right? So.
yes. So I've had several clients that they'll come to me and they'll say, the first things that we noticed from our loved one was that it's usually a younger onset as well. So they'll say, like, my spouse stopped going to my child's high school like football games, or they just wanted to sit at home on the couch all day, and we started having significant marital problems because I thought that my loved one just didn't want to be here for me anymore. More flat affect, or another example I have is a family that they were expecting a baby. So the daughter was expecting a baby, and their mom just was not acting the excited way that you think somebody would act. They really didn't take initiative to being involved with going shopping or planning a shower or anything. It was those are just signs to look for. And again, oftentimes the physician might go to depression first. So I really want families to keep note of these things that they're noticing with their loved ones. So when they go to the doctor, you know, we have 15 minutes with our doctor. It's usually the block off time.
No, yeah, more like 7 sometimes.
Yeah. Oh yeah, 7. And so if we don't have this outlined and we don't give this to the doctor, you know, we just have to learn to be our own best advocate. And that's really something that I help my families with. Is I'm very familiar with the healthcare system. I've worked in it 9 years. But there's a lot of things that just kind of fall through the cracks. And I want to help support families be their own best advocate with this disease.
Yeah. So when you know, with Thanksgiving coming up and everybody gets together, and, you know, for people who want to kind of keep a better eye out for various types of dementias, whether or not it be the Alzheimer's type dementia, which is obviously the most common out there,
right.
But or frontotemporal or Lewy body. What are some of the things when people are kind of visiting the house or assembling at a home, doing holiday type activities? What are some examples there that they can latch on to kind of think, okay, I'm going to keep an eye out for this or that or that?
Yeah, so I'll talk about more of the environment first. So I really like to work as a detective of really just analyzing that environment. So a lot of times when people are starting to have these cognitive changes, they're working so hard to hold it together. And they do really good at masking and holding it together as best they can. But I recommend, you know, does your loved one have an office that they pay the bills in? What does that look like? What does the desk look like? Does it look very disheveled and disorganized? You know, closets, does it look like things are just kind of shoved in there and just disorganized? Are you noticing that mail is kind of piled up somewhere? And I just really try to look at that. Look at the refrigerator. Does it look like things are missing, or does it look like things maybe should be thrown away? You know, that the dates aren't good on the items anymore. Really trying to be a detective of the environment. Look in the garage. How does the garage look? You know, does your loved one spend a lot of time at their workbench, and now it just seems like, it doesn't really look like they've worked on anything in a while? Those are those subtle changes that your loved one's probably never going to bring to you that this is an issue, but what you can see.
Yeah, that's neat. I just want to say I love that analogy of just being a detective when you go in there. That's a really great way to think about it. So you're kind of walking around the house and you're looking for kind of like little pieces of evidence, you know?
Yeah, and we're not calling anybody out on it. That's the one thing.
Yeah.
We're just working as a detective. We need to build a village of support around people. So we don't want to just over criticize. We just want to take note of what are some things that we're noticing here. But when it comes to more of the actual physical things that you're noticing, I'll hear often and see often, my loved one doesn't seem as put together as they normally once were. You know, maybe somebody dressed to the nines, and they just don't seem like they're caring about that as much as their appearance. Also noticing in conversation, are they able to attend to the conversation? At Thanksgiving, we could be sitting around the table and have 10 different conversations going on at one time. That can be very overstimulating and very overwhelming, and people might just say yes or no and have very short responses and not really engage in the back and forth conversation. So you might notice some changes in language, but then you also might notice, you know, do they go into another part of the house and they're just kind of self-isolating? So noticing those changes as well. Of course, there's the normal like repetition of questions, a difficulty with word finding, you know, in a sentence. So those are all more of those physical things that you'll notice.
Okay. And and so when, you know, a lot of things that I do, and I'm assuming others do, you know, when they're with family over the holidays, is you might just go for a walk because sometimes we're all in the house together. We just want to go for a walk with somebody.
Yeah.
So we get out of the house, you know, my sister has a dog or whatever, we'll just walk the dog, or, you know, I'll go for a walk with my mom, right? Or sometimes we'll, you know, we might play a game or something like that, you know, things like that. Are there things to look for and kind of like those little, I guess, little activities that happen on the side kind of thing?
Yes, I think
So,
that walk is a great example. I have had clients that they'll get caught in their conversation, and you can tell that they're really trying to think about which way do we turn and where do we go to get
okay.
back. Another is like playing games. You know, that's a working memory. That's executive function, or you're using those executive function skills. And when a lot of people, they just think memory loss is just that short-term memory, difficulty with word finding, or difficulty with, you know, who did I talk to on the phone earlier today? But it's so much more than that. It is loss in our executive function skills. So that's, again, that thought organization, problem solving, you know, being able to have topic maintenance, stay on task. All of that gets affected with cognitive decline and cognitive changes. So playing a game, that takes a lot of executive function skills. They have to remember the rules of the game. They have to remember whose turn it is, when it's their turn to go. So that is another great area to sort of be a detective. Are you noticing, gosh, my loved one's needing a lot more cues or like redirection that it's their turn? That's another great thing to really look out for.
Okay, that's okay, great. I mean, that's, you know, one of the things we like to play a lot of is chess over the holidays, and you know, and my sons are actually starting to learn, and they're actually starting to get reasonably good, and I'm starting to get a little scared that they're going to beat me on a regular basis. But that's something good to look out for, especially for, you know, like in-laws, parents-in-law, you know, things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you know, I guess since one thing I did want to cover is, since COVID, at least the pandemic portion of COVID, is just kind of like is subsiding and ending. Uh, are there any unique things that you're starting to see as a result of that, as families get back together again, or what families see and what they're reporting back to you? Or
Yes, I am. Actually, so I receive referrals from people either just finding me organically, but then also from different physicians, geriatricians, and neurologists within where I live in Indiana. And it's interesting, I'm having so many more referrals that normally what I'll see, it will say MCI, mild cognitive impairment, suspecting early stage dementia, and then they get referred to me. What I'm seeing on so many reports now is long haul COVID, not sure whether this is MCI or is this early stage dementia. We'll continue to monitor. And I'll give an example of a client that I had when they went to their doctor, the geriatrician. You know, they asked them questions of, and this is fine, but like, you know, who's the president, what day of the week it is, recall these three things for me. And this individual was able to do that just fine. But the family kept saying, they had a really hard time with their taxes this year. They're starting to have difficulty with utilizing their iPad and their computer. Like something else is going on here, and it's not getting picked up on these tests. So I ended up going to their home and doing an assessment that looked at their visual spatial skills. They had to replicate a pattern of something using different pieces of felt and replicate it on a placemat. It's an assessment that therapists use. It's called an Allen Cognitive Level Placemat. But on that placemat, this individual had their pieces all over the place. They did not replicate the pattern. And when I asked, does your pattern look like my pattern? They said yes. because they thought in their brain that it was the same, but it wasn't. So those are some visual spatial deficits that on paper did not get picked up. But when I had them do more of a functional task, it did get picked up. So I recommend for families, give those real world, real life examples. Sometimes families feel very uncomfortable of saying with their loved one sitting right there, like they didn't do well with the taxes this year, or, you know, it's uncomfortable. So I always tell families to write up notes and hand them when you check in for your appointment, hand them to the front desk and say, give this to the nurse before our appointment, so that the nurse who sees you before the physician can review those, give them to the physician, and then the physician can bring those things up versus you being the bad guy in the hot seat next to your loved one.
Okay, got it. And, you know, this is all really great. And like I said, I wish we had, you know, resources like this. I think it's a lot more sophisticated now than it was like in the, you know, mid 1990s.
Yeah.
mid 1990s, early 2000s. You know, it's like, so this is really great information. And I just wanted to cover a little bit about, you know, when a family does come to you, and they're, well, I guess if I even back up a little bit more, before a family comes to you, what are their concerns and what leads them to a dementia coach? And then what role do you play in the context of, there's a physician over here, a neurologist over there, primary care, and a neurologist, and so many, and obviously there might be even, you know, other assisted living support things, you know, so where does how do they end up coming to you? What are their needs? And then how does dementia family coaching work?
Yeah, so just how we talked about a bit ago about having that 15 or 7 minutes that you're with your healthcare provider. So I've worked 9 years as a therapist in the healthcare system, and I know very well that there are things that are great about the healthcare system, but again, there are things that really fall through the cracks. And why I started what I started was just what I would hear from families of, okay, I've received this diagnosis and I've heard see you back in 6 months or see you back in a year. And they really aren't given very much of, okay, but how is this now going to affect our day-to-day function? And how is this going to affect my relationship with my spouse, or like our community, or our, you know, our adult children, or, you know, any of those things? And so I have created this coaching and consulting because I see what falls through the cracks, and I'm here to help families advocate for the services that really should already be provided to them. They should be told what these services are, but they just don't. And so again, you said that, like we talked about detectives. So I'm helping families become a detective, being able to have a better understanding of ways to communicate with their loved one, ways to set up their environment differently, ways to enhance that memory loss. You know, we're not going to fix it, but what support's going to put in place to enhance it? We're talking about the pathway of, okay, you're recently diagnosed. What should we put in place now? But then also, let's be very proactive in an unfortunately reactive healthcare system. And let's talk about what's coming down the pathway, what to expect, and figure out what services are in your area so that we can build that village of support for you. So it really complements the services that you're already receiving in the healthcare world. But it's really coming together and teaching you the tools of even, you know, dealing with grief, dealing with feelings of guilt, dealing with, well, what does my loved one really want versus how much can I actually manage on my own? So it's a lot of work like that. It's very individualized, and some people, they find me when they're first diagnosed. Some people, they don't find me until it's more they're more further advanced, and they just want to know what are some guidance things that I can have in place for that end of life stage.
Now I know that there is that side of it where there's people who need help because of the fact that a family member just got diagnosed or were diagnosed a while ago, like you're saying. They might come and end up coming to you later. And there's, how do I, arrange my life? How do I cope with it? And you're mentioning also you provide, it's very individualized, right?
Yes, yes.
And on the other side of things here, I do want to touch upon this, and that is, I'm sure they ask you questions, and I know that you work in cognitive wellness as well, right? So there's a side of, what do I do to take care of my loved one and take care of my life in general, and how to structure it so that we enhance the living of the entire family. And then on the other side here, it's, what can I do for myself and my loved ones who are not affected by the disease or do not have the diagnosis, but would like to promote our cognitive health. Obviously, this is an area that's a big interest for NeuroReserve, because we are a nutrition company and we're focused in brain health and reducing risk of neurodegenerative diseases. So obviously a lot of our users are very in tune with that. But when it comes to cognitive wellness and what people ask you about that side of things, I do want to switch over to, like, here are the positive actions that we can take along those lines. And then what would you say to them, and what do they typically ask regarding, how do I take care of my brain, basically? How do I take care of my cognition?
And I think that NeuroReserve does an amazing job of highlighting that and educating families on that, of, the diet, nutrition, all those holistic lifestyle factors. Right? Those are the things that people are asking me about. And we're talking about, not becoming socially isolated yourself, which is very difficult when you are becoming a care partner, right? And then there's that guilt of doing things for yourself versus doing things for your loved one. We're talking about diet. We're talking about exercise. We're talking about sleep. We're talking about hydration. We're talking about cognitive stimulation. What are the things that maybe you haven't done in a while, but you used to love doing? Can we find a way that you can still enjoy doing them? Going on walks.
Even when you're taking care of, your family member, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Oh, and also I'll add to this, and this is the more medical side of me, right? Is just make sure you take care of your heart health, and also cardiovascular health, and also metabolic health, meaning diabetes health.
Yes.
Trying to stay away from diabetes as much as you can, because that's a major risk factor for Alzheimer's, especially in the future.
Right.
And so, by the way, everyone, if, for those of you who are watching now or later after we post this, what we'll do is we'll just make sure that in the summary article, we'll have our, a guide on healthy cognitive living. And also, link for an article on the mind and the Mediterranean diets, which are which have the strongest evidence with respect to supporting and strengthening and reinforcing cognitive health as we age. So we'll make sure we have that sort of resource in there for you. But I think so we're coming up. I just want to make sure we stay, within time. Want to make sure that you can get out there and enjoy the sun before all the snow comes. But one thing I did want to ask you is, well, first of all, and say this is a great conversation. It's wonderful to hear all these very practical and detective-like things to look for, between abnormal and normal cognitive aging. So thank you so much for doing that and summarizing that here. And like I said, we're going to put it kind of in a document or an article type format, so you can capture there on text for people to catch up with it there, in case they weren't able to listen to this or watch this. One thing is, how can people get in contact with you? How can they find you?
Yeah, so I have my Instagram account. So it's The Memory Compass is the name of my company. My website is www.thememorycompass.com. You can email info@thememorycompass.com. I have some people, they'll send messages through Instagram, or they will just reach out on my website.
Please, people, if you need help in that area, it's, Jesse's been in this from, I don't know, since the very beginning of college, right? So you've been doing this, for forever. So so just getting this sort of support and getting this sort of advice and coaching could be extremely helpful, especially for myself, reflecting on it now, so my family could have benefited from it very much so. And also, just when it comes to NeuroReserve, where we're here, but also neuroreserve.com, and that's where you can find out a lot about nutrition and brain health. And that, as Jesse was saying earlier, it's a big factor when it comes to long-term brain health. So go there and you can learn about that. You can learn about, obviously, our products, one of which is Relevate. But other than that, just thanks so much for your time, Jesse.
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like I could have gone on and on about MCI, normal aging, something more advanced. So be sure to check out like the extra resources that you'll be posting if anybody wants more information on that.
Yes, and I mean, the great thing about these Instagram lives is they're really pretty easy to put together. You just click it and go. So we should get online again and go a little bit more in depth on certain things. So, but in the meantime, just obviously, everyone have a great holiday season as it comes up. Keep these things in mind that Jesse just went over. And emphasize that cognitive health for yourself and your loved ones, and it'll be a great benefit for everyone. So, thanks so much, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you.
Right. Have a great day.
You too. Bye.
Right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.